The METUS Tech Show.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
I like how you guys bounce back and forth between heat pump talk and food talk.
The METUS Tech Show.
Mitsubishi.
All right, so last week we talked about some of the foods we ate for the holidays or we cooked. And I remember back in Halloween, we went over the top 10 best candies and the top 10 worst candies.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. So I thought we'd do kind of the same thing. So I have a list here of the 36 classic Christmas foods ranked from ho-ho horrible to fa-la-la fabulous.
36?
36. We're not going to go all 36. Okay. I'm going to do the 10 worst and count down, from number 27 to 36, and then we'll go from number 10 to 1. You guys ready?
Sure.
Okay, so canned yams.
No.
Why?
I'm not crazy about canned yams. I'm not crazy about canned anything. Okay, so that's all. Oh, eggnog flavored baked goods. I don't even like eggnog, and I don't want anything. Eggnog.
I don't think I've ever had eggnog in my life.
Yeah, it's horrible.
You never had a spiced eggnog, Steve?
No.
No, this
You're
one.
not missing out. So you're good.
I'm Portuguese. We don't do eggnog. We do
it's like, you know what?
anisette or something like
Take
that.
some vanilla ice cream and melt it. You get the same thing. It's
Okay.
No,
right?
it's not.
Biscotti. Biscotti, I don't think should be on there. I like biscotti.
Yeah. Biscotti's a...
Yep, not bad.
Oh, yeah, that shouldn't be on the list. Oh, this one shouldn't be on the list. We were talking about this, the panettone bread. It comes in a box.
Yeah.
It is so good. I love that. My wife will buy like individual ones for me and the kids right around Christmas, but they're so good. They shouldn't be
I don't
on
know.
there.
I put that in the fruitcake category.
No, it's
like when
so
you
much-
see it, it's one of those cakes you see on the table and you're like,
You got to try one. It's so good. The good thing
I'll have
about
to try
it
it next time I
is
see it.
it's that, I don't know why I do this. Maybe it might be an ADHD thing, but you squeeze the bread down as tight as you can. It goes from this big soft thing, and it's so. Oh, I know, it's so good. I love that stuff.
The last time I tried it was too spongy.
So far,
It
Paul,
was very
these
bready.
aren't really bad things.
No, this next one I've never had: mince pie,
Mince pie.
Mince
Isn't
pie.
that like
mince meat.
Oh,
It's dried fruits and spices, basically. Maybe I have had it, but I'm not. I guess I'm not a fan. No, it's putrid. I'm going to go with that.
isn't that like the same thing that comes in those cans, deviled ham?
Oh, those
Is
things
that
are
minced?
awful.
Yeah.
No, minced meat is a
Christmas
certain.
treat
I
with
think it's just
sweet
dried fruits.
Spice filling of dried fruits, nuts, spices, sugar, distilled spirits encased in pastry shell.
Well, the distilled spirits are probably
That's
good.
mince
but
pie?
other than that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here's one that totally belongs on the horrible list: boiled carrots.
Boiled carrots?
Yeah, boiled
well, it
carrots.
depends.
I was going to
mean,
say, what do you do with them? Like you boil some carrots and strain them and then put some butter on there. It's great.
Okay, here's another one. I remember doing the worst ones. Right, this one absolutely belongs on the list: salad of any kind. It goes without saying.
What's wrong with salad, man?
I was going to say, I like salad. You lost me there.
Not for Christmas. You're not eating salad.
A
It's
little
Christmas.
Christmas salad?
I'm not eating salad on Christmas.
Yeah, you're right.
I think this is
Christmas.
Paul's
I don't eat Christmas.
this is Paul's worst 10
No,
worst.
because I wouldn't have put the panettone bread on there. That would have been at the top. Here's one that I haven't had in decades, but I don't like it: ribbon candy.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah,
no,
that stuff is
no,
horrible.
No,
Yeah.
right in the trash.
Oh, and this one I've never had, but it looks disgusting: figgy pudding, or otherwise known as Christmas pudding. I guess it's in that we wish you a Merry Christmas. So bring me some figgy pudding.
Oh, yeah. It's a
But it looks
song.
disgusting. It basically looks like something you'd find out in a pasture.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like they
Okay.
made that in the 1800s and they haven't made it since.
And you mentioned this a few minutes ago, but the absolute worst one is fruitcake. And I think it reminds me of a Seinfeld episode. I think he's the one who said that there's one fruitcake ever made, and it keeps going around the world for different people. But I've actually tried fruitcake, and it really is as disgusting as it looks.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
What does it taste like?
100%.
It's like
Really wet?
it's
fruit.
like if spackle had flavor.
If you had dirt and you tried it, no. Just
Yeah, it's like eating
can't even
it's
explain
like
it.
eating Armaflex.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Actually, I'd rather eat the Armaflex. Really,
You know we're gonna get callers. They're gonna say, "No, fruitcake's amazing."
I don't think this.
We're also going to get callers that are like, I kind of like Armaflex. What's
Listen,
wrong with
well,
Armaflex?
first of all, we don't get callers, so and we'll probably get emails. But second of all, I know of nobody. No one has ever said I like fruitcake.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that. No.
All right. Okay, so the top 10, the top 10 best, number 10 is charcuterie board.
Yes.
And that's just cheeses and fruits and all
I get that on my Delta flights.
Yeah, I like that.
That's what I did Christmas Day.
It's
I forgot
cured
to
meats.
add that.
Yeah.
It
We did that
is,
too.
Yeah, I did that Christmas Day.
a pickled vegetable or fruit of some kind.
No, it's usually some sausage. We get an echo. It's usually some sausage and cheese, some berries, some grapes, olives,
Yeah.
prosciutto.
Like for an official charcuterie, there's like rules. Has to be cheeses, has to be cured meats, and it has to be a pickled something. Those are like the three like standards of a charcuterie board.
I've never seen anything pickled. I've always had like olives.
What?
No, I've never seen
You
anything.
never had cornichons or
Yeah,
like
dude.
pickled green beans?
No.
Oh
No.
man, you're missing out.
I don't really like pickled stuff.
Oh,
Now, number 9
so good.
absolutely belongs on the list, and it's sugar cookies. You know,
Yep.
shaped like
Yeah.
Christmas trees with a,
100%.
what do they call that? The sprinkly stuff? What do they call that stuff?
Sprinkles.
So, is it? No, it's something else for it. But yeah, so when I was a kid, my mother used to make those,
Yeah.
and she'd put them on the tree. And the dog had a border collie. She would stand up on her hind legs and eat all the cookies. So any cookie, within dog range was gone. But so, all right. Oh, this next one's really good too. Pecan pie or pecan pie. I don't know which one it is.
It's
But that's one of the best desserts.
it's pecan pie. There's no pecan.
You know.
Oh.
All right. The next one should be on every list. Roast beef of prime rib.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
That should be on any list.
Yeah.
100%.
This next one I'm not crazy about. Fudge. Not crazy about fudge.
Fudge is
It's too sweet. It's too sweet for
It's
me.
in moderation.
Yeah.
Little pieces here and there.
Oh, this next one, I don't know how you can have you can't have turkey without this. Gravy
Yeah.
is actually, you need gravy.
I showed Scott how to make some bomb gravy this Thanksgiving
Hands down, the best gravy I have ever
from
cooked.
scratch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I do that too.
All the stuff that you used to pull out of the turkey and throw in the garbage.
Oh.
Boil that,
Yes.
get all that flavor out of it.
yeah.
Oh, it's incredible.
The next one, I'm okay, and I guess I'll do this one. I could after I come in from cleaning the snow. I'll do it, but it's hot cocoa.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
I don't have it very often though.
Yeah, no,
I'll
me
be
neither.
honest.
Yeah.
The next one I absolutely love is roasted potatoes. Right, and for me, it's hard for me to get the potatoes. There's a restaurant in Framingham, La Cantina. They have these roasted potatoes. They're the best I've ever had, and I've tried to copy that, and I can never get it right. Now, maybe they got the Instapot. I can probably.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know.
I don't know. You got to get the little bit of crisp in there.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of roasted potatoes? What potatoes we talking here? Like the red potatoes, like
No, they're just cooked and fat, and they're kind of crispy on the outside, but fluffy and creamy on the
Almost
inside.
like a home fry, but
Yeah, but something
Not quite.
somehow different. It's I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it. It's crispy on the outside, nice and creamy on the inside.
Yeah.
And then speaking of potatoes, number 2 is mashed potatoes, which you have to have mashed potatoes.
Yeah,
for
Love mashed
holidays.
potatoes.
Thanksgiving and Christmas, if you're gonna make a turkey or a ham, you need mashed potatoes.
Yep.
And then, the number 1, I'm disappointed, is peppermint bark.
No.
And it's just this look. I don't know.
it's pretty good. I've had peppermint bark. It's like the Christmas cracker.
I was gonna say it's kind of like the Christmas crack, right?
Yeah,
but it's
It's like white chocolate.
Yeah, it's white chocolate with peppermint
yeah.
flavoring. As long as you don't go too crazy with the peppermint.
These
that's the
lists
thing.
are all.
You don't want menthol.
Yeah.
You want
By the way,
peppermint.
these
No, it's
lists are from a
spearmint.
website that's not mine. It's kind of subjective. I don't like.
Mm.
I don't like peppermint and chocolate. I just don't think it goes well.
You don't like a lot of things, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went through every chocolate on Halloween. I don't think you liked one of them.
No, yeah, I love.
You might have liked one, right?
No, I love
Yeah.
chocolate.
Just like I hate that.
No, the
You
Necco
liked,
wafer. The
what do you
Necco
say?
wafer.
Chunky and what was the other one? You said chunky bars. And
Oh yeah, chunky
these
bars.
ones that like literally are collecting dust on the shelves.
Mallow cups.
Yeah,
Collected dust.
mallow cups.
Those are great.
The ones everyone walks by.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite.
But come on, I can't be the only one who thinks that Necco wafers are putrid.
Oh no,
No, yeah, they're
Necco, we
bad.
all agreed that Necco
yeah.
wafers. Remember, I said it. They're like the chlorine tabs you put in the drain pans for AC units.
Put one in a vending machine, you'll get a soda.
Yeah. Have you Have you ever made your own sugar cookies or Christmas cookies?
Yeah.
Whatever was, I don't know if you know how to prevent this, but what used to always happen to me is if you get the cookie cutters to make them shaped like, Christmas themed things, once you bake them, they all become circles again. Like there's no way to keep the shape. So what I started doing when I make sugar cookies that are like Christmas themed is I actually just make regular sugar cookies, and then like right before they're done, I cut them out of the circle. And that's how I get the Christmas shape. But I know there's a way to do it.
Yeah, my wife,
you got to use
ask
less.
my wife because she does it. She puts them
more
in
flour
They
or
look like a
something?
Christmas
Yeah, you got to
tree.
use more flour versus shortening
Like less butter or something.
butter
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But there's a certain recipe.
I still like the cookie. I think my wife makes these cookies. I think she got the recipe from Michelle, our admin here in Boston, and it's butterscotch chocolate chip oatmeal raisin cookies. It's like it's so good. It's like really,
That's good stuff.
Anyway, welcome to the METUS Tech Show, everybody. We are into part 2 of our A2L series.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to get a little more in depth in this episode. And we got Scott, our product champion on A2L. He's been up to his eyeballs in A2L up until this point.
Scott is the A2L guru,
Yes.
sensei, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah. He's looking at us right now with like this smirk, and he doesn't look happy.
Well, don't forget he's fighting a toothache too.
Oh, okay.
So if I was fighting a that's the worst thing is a toothache.
Yeah, we're talking about sweets and everything
I'll
else.
say. You said mallow cup, and his mouth swole up a little bit.
Yeah.
We got Paul Shaves, Bryn Raptor, and myself, Steve Pimentel, on the show today. And where are we going with this?
Well, so the first episode that we did, we talked about just kind of the updates, what's changed, some of the new things. So with this episode, we're going to get into more about our refrigerant sensors, with A2L being that slightly flammable. We have more equipment or more accessories that help detect and mitigate against any refrigerant getting into the space. So we're going to talk about the sensors. We're going to talk about install requirements as far as whether you're doing a one-to-one, a ported or a smart multi, what's different, what we need to do, and then mitigation strategies. So what actually happens in the event of a leak with each of those applications.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
So to start, I think it's really important to note the refrigerant sensors. There's some confusion around it. It can sound a little confusing. The most simple way to explain refrigerant sensors and the way that we are applying them is that you, as a installing contractor, will never have to install a refrigerant sensor unless you have a wall mount unit on a smart multi. That's the only time you will field install a refrigerant sensor.
That's just the easiest way to understand it right there.
Yep. There are some times where there's a refrigerant sensor that's not being monitored. There are times where the refrigerant sensors are built in and they are being monitored. That stuff we'll get into when we talk about the breakdown of, mitigation strategies. But the main thing to remember here is that the only involvement you're ever going to have with installing one in the field is on a brand new install on a wall mount that's on a smart multi. Everything else, you don't have to worry about the refrigerant sensors.
Oh, that's nice and easy.
Yeah. So, Scott, why don't you let us know which units come with the sensors?
We'll be right back. Hey, listeners, if you like the METUS Tech Show, you should check out our YouTube channel called the METUS Training Network. That's METUS Training Network. Head on over to the METUS Training Network for tons of videos and programming made for HVAC professionals just like you. We've got technical training tips, HVAC program updates, and episodes of our new HVAC talk show called The Comfort Zone. Of course, you also get to catch up on more episodes of the METUS Tech Show as well. Head on over to YouTube and subscribe to the METUS Training Network today. Now, back to the METUS Tech Show.
All right, so to piggyback real quick what you said about the wall mounts, there's only 2 models of wall mounts that can be connected to the Smart Multi branch box. That is going to be the FX and the GX models only, right? So like today we have our designer models that going on, our 410A models our designer models that can go on the branch box. That's no longer going to be an option when we with the R454B. Just wanted to clear that up.
Yep.
So again, 2 wall mounts, FX and GX are the only 2 models that we are going to be field installing a refrigerant sensor when connected to a branch box, not a 1-to-1, not connected to a ported. All right, so back to your question, what models come with refrigerant sensor? Here's the easiest way, and Brandon, I think you're the one that kind of set it up for me too, was all ducted models.
Yep.
So let's think about ducted models, right? We have the SVZ, the PVA, the PAA, the PEAD, and the SEZ.
Yep.
Those are all of our ducted models. Come with a refrigerant sensor, the MFZ. So I'm going to stick with these right now for this group. So the floor mount, the MFZ, and all ducted models come with refrigerant sensors, and they're active for all installs.
Yep.
So what do I mean by that, Brent? Right?
Right. So whether it's a 1-to-1 smart multi ported system, whatever the case is, whatever your install is, those come with a built-in refrigerant sensor, and they are monitored. So there are times where you may install, like, for example, a one-way cassette, and I'm sure you're going to get into this, Scott, but you may install a one-way cassette that sensor is not being monitored. Even though it's built in, it's not actually being monitored by the system.
That's what I was going to ask. So it is built into the MLZ.
Correct. It's just not always being monitored.
All right.
In fact, there's Steve, there's only 2 units across the board, the entire lineup from M&P series. There's only 2 units that do not come with the refrigerant sensor. Well, there's a third, which is the wall mount, which we already addressed, right? We're only installing the refrigerant sensor on the wall mount when it's connected to the branch box. But there's 2 other units that will never require refrigerant sensor.
And that's because they go on a 1-to-1. They don't go on the smart
1-to-1. And let's think about this, Steve. What 2 units do we not install on the branch box on P series?
That would be the PCA ceiling suspended.
Yep.
And the PKA wall mount.
Wall mount. Yep. So those 2 units, 2 indoor units, do not come installed with a refrigerant sensor, nor you'll never need a refrigerant sensor on those 2 particular units.
All right. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. So all ducted models, floor mount, and one-way cassettes come with sensors.
Yep.
And the PLA and the SLZ, the 4-way.
Okay.
The 4-way cassettes.
Yeah, the 4-way cassette
and
the SLZ.
Yeah. So
okay.
just talk about it. So all models come with a refrigerant sensor with the exception of the PCA, the P-Series wall mount. So ceiling suspended, the P-Series wall mount, and the M-Series wall mount do not come installed with the refrigerant sensor. Those 3.
All right. So, Scott, just to make sure I'm getting this right. So if I have a unit that comes with a built-in sensor,
Okay.
and I connect it to a smart multi-unit, that sensor is going to be operational, right?
Correct.
What if I connect that to a 1-to-1?
Depends.
Now, what unit are we talking?
It depends.
okay.
We're going to get into that. We're going to break that all down because that's the question we're going to get tons of is when am I how many of these have built-in sensors? When are they being looked at? When are they not? Right. So we actually are going to break that down. 1-to-1s ported and
so
smart
those
multis.
listening who have the same question in their head as me,
Yes.
You'll just have to wait a few more miles and get down the road a few more miles.
So the simplify that it's there are certain units where if they're always installed, they're always being monitored. There are certain units that are always installed, only monitored on a smart multi. That's basically the 2 different categories.
So we'll clear that up for everybody.
Yeah. So getting into the differences between a 1-to-1 system, a ported, and a smart multi installation, we're going to talk about what is required of you as a contractor for installation purposes, and then also the mitigation strategy. So in the event that a leak occurs, what happens? What does a system do? What does a 1-to-1 do? What does a ported system do? What does a smart multi do when we go into that leak detection situation? And one thing that we're probably going to mention a couple times that I want to put out there, you're going to see this in the install manuals, don't forget about it, is there's 2 terms called A-min and M-max. And we have charts in our install manuals regarding these 2 things. A-min is the new requirement is going to be when you are trying to size a system, you've got a ported or potentially a smart multi, even a 1-to-1, you need to take the area of that room. You need to take the length and the width, figure out that area, and compare it to what's called the M-max. M-max stands for the maximum charge allowed in that system given the square footage of that smallest room.
Got it.
So let's say, for example, you've got a 10 10 by 10 room, 100 square foot room. You're going to take that 100 square feet, bring it to the chart that's in the install manual. It will tell you what the maximum charge for that system is for a 100 square foot installation. So, in this case, it's 5 pounds, 4 ounces, gets you 98 square feet. So anything above that, if your total charge for the system, right, you might be pre-charged for, let's say, 5 pounds, but then when you add your trim charge for the line set, puts you over that 4 ounces. That's too much charge for that small of a room.
So you can't. So it's a no-go.
Correct.
You cannot install it.
Correct. Okay. And that's going to be across the board. You're going to have to do that no matter whether it's a 1-to-1, ported, or smart multi. You're always going to have to take in that minimum room, that smallest room size. You're going to have to take that into account for what your total charge is going to be allowed, your M max.
And again, this is an industry standard,
Correct.
Not a Mitsubishi standard.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Now, they do change, and that's one thing we'll talk about a little bit is because of the different mitigation strategies between like a 1-to-1 or a ported versus a smart multi, because we have those solenoids on the smart multi, that M max may change a little bit, and we'll talk about that. But Scott, you want to talk about the 1-to-1 installations and what happens and what's required?
Yeah. So for 1-to-1, let's talk about what units, right? What indoor heads, those refrigerant sensors come active. So again, all ducted models, right? So I'm not going to name them all, but the air handlers, the PAA, the PAD, and the SEZ, and so forth, ducted models, and the floor mount. If it is connected to a 1-to-1 system, those sensors become active and are monitoring.
Yep.
So in case now, let's fast forward and say in case there's a leak in the system, it detects a leak. What's going to happen is the indoor unit is going to go into what you call circulation flow, and all that is just high fan speed. So we're trying to disperse that refrigerant, into the space, and then the outdoor unit is going to turn off. And circulation flow is anywhere from it changes but varies the unit to unit, but it's anywhere from 7 to 8 hours. Yeah. That circulation indoor unit fan's just going to constant blow for that long. The compressor is going to turn off, and then the outdoor unit fan is going to turn off. When those two things happen, then you can kill power to the system. But in all of our manuals, it states do not turn power off to the outdoor unit until that compressor and the outdoor fan is off. Once those things are off, then you can go in and find the leak and, just do what we do today, right? When we go trying to find the leak, recover the refrigerant and so forth. So that's kind of what happens on the 1-to-1 system.
Yeah. And with a P series, right, we're talking about pretty much all P series except for the PK and PCA.
So the floor mount is part of that. That floor mount is connected to an SUZ.
Yep.
So that's one of the reasons why that is connected to SUZ, so we can so it can monitor the refrigerant through that, because it's just a much smarter system than a true M series outdoor unit.
Right. S series kind of shares some of that P series logic. So
it does.
That's why we get
it shares that logic. That's why we have function settings on S series. Same thing.
Yep.
Correct.
So the other thing that will happen if you have an MA controller installed, you're going to get an error code. All right. You're going to get it's an FL error code. That's the P series error code. That's a refrigerant leak. There's also an FH, which is for refrigerant error or leak, refrigerant sensor error. So it may not actually have detected a leak, but there's a malfunction in the refrigerant sensor itself. That's an FH. Okay. And that's kind of important to pay attention to, right? Because you show up to a service call and you've got an FH error code and it mentions something about the refrigerant sensor, your brain's going to go straight to, oh, it's a leak. I got to pull the charge and check for a leak and all this stuff. But if it's just a refrigerant sensor error, it could be, it didn't detect a leak. It just went off on air, right? Something was wrong. There's a heater inside that heats up that sensor. So if that heater fails, it might throw an FH error code, things like that.
It reminds me of like diagnosing a pressure switch. Is it the switch itself that's bad, or did
it actually go off on?
Or did it actually go off on pressure?
Right. Yeah. That's P series 1-to-1s. Like I said, all P series indoor units, with the exception of the PK and PCA, I'll always be monitoring its refrigerant sensor. With the floor mount, the only difference is it is paired with the SUZ, and we'll see a flash code on the floor mount. So
yes, it would be a 13 flash.
Okay. Yep. And there was something about the left lamp blinks 3 times and the right lamp will light on. The light will be on for 3 seconds.
So what'll happen is the left lamp will blink 3 times. Then it will be a solid light. the right light will go solid solid for 3 seconds. Then it will rotate after that.
Yep. Again, with those 1-to-1s, regardless of whether it's a P series or M series, we still need to go to that install manual, find our minimum room area. So a 1-to-1, you're going to measure that room size, take that square footage, bring it to the chart, and make sure that you're not exceeding, because we don't have any mitigation strategy as far as expelling any of the refrigerant, right? Okay. So we have ways to go off an error to notify, but at the end of the day, this is our space. This is how much refrigerant we can allow into that space before we exceed refrigerant concentration. There's no way of preventing that refrigerant from getting in there, so we still have to follow that chart to make sure we're not potentially leaking too much refrigerant into that space.
And you don't have to commit any of this to memory because it's all in the manual.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. So my A-min and M-max chart, there's a special chart just for one-to-ones, correct?
Correct.
And there's another chart for smart multi. What about ported?
Ported is going to follow the same rule.
Yeah. Every indoor unit and every outdoor unit has a chart.
Yep.
All right, so there is a chart for the ported unit itself.
Yeah, the ported smart multi branch box, SUZ, M series, P series. Every unit will have its own. Will have a chart. So make sure that
it's a unique chart to that type of system. Okay. That's
we'll even discuss this, but even the branch box has its own chart.
Yeah.
Yep. So then we switch over to ported, right? So now we're talking about a ported install. Nothing is changing as far as installation goes. You're not installing any refrigerant sensors. The ones that are built in that are monitoring are going to continue to monitor.
This was a question I got the other day from someone from our sales team. They were on site with contractors who were asking, what do I do with the wall mount units on this ported system? Nothing, right?
Nothing. And what you have to do, and this is why I bring it up, what you have to do is you still have to go to your ported install manual and find that A-min and M-max chart.
Right.
Because again, we're not doing with the ported system, we're not doing anything about preventing the refrigerant from entering the space, right? There's no way to prevent it. There's no way to expel it. So what we do, we have a mitigation strategy to help disperse it. But as far as how much refrigerant we can allow into a certain space, that's not going to change because we don't have any way we're not doing anything to prevent it. So we still have that chart that we need to
and this is, I can see being the biggest hurdle for contractors is understanding all of the different applications, what I can do and what I can't do. And it's really not that bad once you start doing it, and you'll figure out what's needed for a 1-to-1, which units have a sensor, which units don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's really as simple as you've got a ported system, you go to that house, you find the smallest room that's getting ahead, you take your square footage of that room, bring it to the chart. When you do your whole install, right, you complete your install, you figure out what your trim charge is going to be on top of the factory charge. If it's less than that M max number for that small room, you're good to go. If it's more than, you might have to put that unit on a 1-to-1.
Okay. And the great thing about the ported is we don't have to remove refrigerant or add refrigerant. Nope. The charge is the charge, right?
I love that.
Like we mentioned last time.
Setup for max charge, this is correct, which is nice. So to kind of piggyback what you just said, Brian, as far as mitigation on the ported system, it's pretty much very similar to a 1-to-1 system, right? It's the same units that are active on a ported that are on the 1-to-1. So ducted, only ducted, and the MFZ, the floor mount. That's it. All the units that come with a refrigerant sensor, the one-way cassette, the four-way cassettes, even though they have sensors installed in them, they're not being monitored for the ported and the 1-to-1 systems.
So that answers the question I had a few minutes ago.
Yes.
What about the MLZ one-way cassette on a ported?
Nope.
Not it has monitored. A sensor, but it's not being used.
A sensor.
Right.
Huh.
Exactly. One last thing. So for a ported, so if say you have it's a 3-port ported unit, ports A, B, and C, so 3 heads. Say if port B triggers the error, saying port B, that's where refrigerant leak is. What'll happen is indoor unit B will go into circulation flow, high fan speed, right? And then units A and C will go in standby mode for the ported system.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the mitigation strategy on that.
So standby mode, almost like mixed modes.
Correct.
So the flashing on the wall units, that type of thing. Okay.
Yep. Units will shut off, be in that flashing, and then the unit. And then we also have the ability, and we talked about it in the last podcast a little bit too, but there's the PAR 42 controller that we came out with, or coming out with, that has the ability to be used as a supervisor, where if any units throughout a larger system go into error, it can notify exactly which unit goes into error, which is helpful. It's another option.
Remember, for supervisor mode is monitor only. That's all it's for.
Yeah, it doesn't actually control
And it doesn't,
an indoor unit.
The PAR 42 does not have a refrigerant sensor in it. It's just picking up what are the other refrigerant sensors. Okay.
Yep.
So are you saying I can install a PAR 42 and not have it do any of the controlling?
Correct.
So it must be a setting in the controller that I just set it.
Yes.
You're a supervisor only. You're just letting me know what's happening.
Yep. If a unit goes off on a refrigerant error, it can notify through that supervisor. That way you don't have to go into the room that has a refrigerant leak in it, potential.
Rather say you have like 3 heads and you have to figure out what head has the error. You have to go to kids room, master bedroom, and bonus room, whatever. That controller will tell you exactly this head.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, that's just an option. That's not a requirement.
Correct.
Right.
It's not required. It's not. Yeah, it's not required.
And it's a setting. So you're configuring this controller to not be a controller, just a monitor.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Interesting.
So that's pretty much what happens with the ported. It's fairly similar to a 1-to-1, except for the fact that if one of the units that is always monitoring its refrigerant sensor does go off, the other unit's going to standby. That unit's going to go into high fan speed. Outdoor unit's going to behave the same. Compressor's going to stop. Outdoor unit fan's going to run, and then eventually that will stop, and you can power off and start doing your diagnosing. So now let's go to the fun one.
Yeah. Smart multi with
Smart
the
multi.
branch
Where everyone
box.
probably
So far,
wants
I'm
to
not
know.
confused. I'm good.
Good. So with a smart multi, every unit on that every indoor unit on that smart multi needs to have a refrigerant sensor. Now, all units compatible with the smart multi have a built-in sensor except for the wall mounts. So if you get a 3-port branch box for that smart multi install, in the bag or in the box with that branch box is going to be a small bag with 3 refrigerant sensors for 3 potential indoor units. So you could have 2 ducted units, right, that already have built-in sensors, and then you have 1 wall mount, you're still going to get 3 sensors. You could have 3 ducted units, you're still going to get 3 sensors.
And if
There are no wall mounts on that job, you're still going to get the sensors with the branch.
And if
Yes.
I got the 5-port branch box,
You'll
I'm
get
getting
5.
5 sensors.
You're getting
Correct.
5.
Okay, so this is a question you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
I have all ducted units, and I got this 5-port branch box, and I got 5 sensors.
Yep.
What do I do with those 5 sensors?
So I wouldn't throw them away. So those sensors replace multiple different indoor units. So they should be retained so that you can use them for a potential replacement part.
Okay.
So keep them with the branch box. Keep them somewhere that the homeowner can access them later. But those can be reused, and we'll talk about in a minute which units. But the wall mount sensor, that refrigerant sensor, actually covers multiple different indoor units. So you could potentially have, let's say, a one-way cassette. It's the same refrigerant sensor. So if that one were to go bad, you can use the one that came with the branch box for that one-way cassette, even though they're for the wall.
Yeah, so not a
Same
bad
sensor
idea.
mount.
Not a bad idea to
Yeah.
take the bag of sensors and maybe tape it to the side of the branch box,
Yep.
or put it somewhere where
Just
the
in case.
could be you coming back to fix a sensor. You have extra sensors there.
Yeah.
All right. Beautiful. I like extra parts.
So one thing to note, and I know Scott likes to emphasize this when we talk about it, but if you do not install the wall mount sensors on a smart multi, the unit, when you power on, will go into refrigerant recovery mode, which we'll talk about, immediately on startup. So they have to be installed. It's not optional.
So it knows the sensor's not there.
Correct.
Interesting.
You'll know. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And
So you
if
can't
go
cheat.
one-
Listen,
No.
we mentioned
And-
this
and-
last week. This is in the abundance of caution.
Mhm.
So you shouldn't be cheating this anyway. But it's not going to let you. It's just going to say, look, you need to put that sensor in there. So if you're trying to get by, I'm not going to put the sensor in, or
Yeah.
then you're asking for trouble.
Yep.
And
Do it
Paul,
right.
I'll even go one step further. If you put a 410A head on a R454B unit, any R454B unit, it will go into error or it'll just sit in standby.
All right, and let's make that very, very clear. You cannot use any 410A indoor units with R454B outdoor
they're
unit.
not cross compatible.
They're not compatible. It won't work. You're wasting your time.
Correct.
The nice thing about the Smart Multi and what kind of changes as far as mitigation strategy goes, if a refrigerant leak is detected, is now all of our indoor units have sensors. So when that particular unit, the refrigerant sensor detects a leak, what will happen is the indoor units, if we're not in cooling mode already, will switch to cooling mode. So let's say we're in a heating operation, all units will switch to cooling operation because we're going to do essentially a pump down.
Yeah, so you got to be in cooling. Interesting.
Yep. So we need to go into cooling mode because we're going to essentially pump this thing down. So our liquid side valve is going to shut off. We have solenoid valves on our liquid and suction line at the outdoor unit. So liquid line is going to shut off. All indoor units are going to go into high fan speed. The outdoor unit performs refrigerant recovery operation, where essentially it's going to run that compressor and it's going to be pulling back all that refrigerant down to 22 psi. So obviously we don't want to fully pump it down, right? Because if we have a leak, that we don't want to pull air into the outdoor unit. So we have a little bit of positive pressure before we actually close our suction side valve. So we'll run that compressor till we get down to 22 psi on our suction line. Then our gas side shutoff valve will close. Our compressor will shut off. And so we've actually done some mitigation there. We've actually tried to limit how much refrigerant is actually going to that leaking indoor unit.
And we just did basically a pump down that we would do manually back in the day, right? Now this is being done automatically in the system.
So it makes sense because since there is a very slim chance that this is flammable, what you're doing is putting all the refrigerant in the outdoor unit because you don't want it leaking inside the house.
Right.
Somebody's smoking a cigar or whatever. You don't whatever.
Yeah.
So pump down, basically the best way to explain it, pump down does not use, it just pumps down the refrigerant. It doesn't use any sensors in the system or anything like that. Refrigerant recovery mode, we're using the low pressure sensor when to turn off. And for those that are listening, is there a much larger accumulator in the Smart Multi? Yes. The accumulator is
it's huge.
It's huge.
About the size of a Buick.
Yeah.
So really important, do not turn power off, and you might have said this already, until the outdoor unit finishes its operation of pumping itself down.
Right, because it's not going to pump down without power. So you let it do its thing.
Now with the power off, just so everybody knows at home, with the power off, the solenoids are closed. So they're
power
energized open.
Yep.
So
that's actually a good point because let's say refrigerant leak sensor goes off, you do actually locate a leak, you repair that leak, you got to remember power's off. You have to now treat that like two systems, right? So your outdoor unit is going to be, let's say
your true pressure
lost
ports.
charge, you're going to recover that refrigerant and you're going to treat that outdoor unit. You're going to pressure test triple evac through that side and then use your service ports for your line set heads and everything. Do a pressure test, triple evac on that side. So we're actually kind of doing two sides now because with the power off, those solenoid valves are closed.
Yeah, because on the Smart Multi, we have four service ports.
Yep.
Two true pressure ports on the condenser side and two service ports, which will give you access to the indoor unit side.
So question, the sensor now, I have to replace that as well?
So yes. Question that we've had quite a bit is what happens after it detects a leak. The manual dictates that we need to replace that sensor. It may still be functional. That sensor may still work. It may reset. You may even be able to start the system up and run it again. But we need to replace that sensor.
Okay.
And that's one of the nice things about with these Smart Multis, having those extras there is if you've got a Smart Multi, you might be able to utilize one of the ones that was left behind from the install. Another thing I do want to mention with the Smart Multi that you'll find in the manual as well is a dip switch. So once you've completed your initial test run, when you install a Smart Multi, start the thing up, do your test run, make sure everything's functional, you're not cross-piped, just like you always would. We have to turn on what's called it's dip switch SW6-6. And what SW6-6 does is anytime there is a communication error, the unit is going to go into refrigerant recovery mode. So it's going to go into that switching our units into cooling, shutting off our liquid line, turning on the compressor, pulling that refrigerant back. Now, that could be a pain in the butt, of course, but why would we do that? If you've got an indoor unit that isn't communicating with my outdoor unit, It's not going to be able to communicate that a refrigerant leak was detected. So
Correct.
as an abundance of caution, we need to pull that refrigerant back to the outdoor unit, because if we're not communicating with the indoor unit, we can't. And that refrigerant leak sensor is going off because it's dumping refrigerant into that room. If we aren't communicating, we're not going to get that information.
So if it's not communicating, it's going to assume worst case scenario.
Exactly. It's going to pull
Correct.
that refrigerant back. So it's something to be aware of on install. Square away your MNet communication, because we all know there's smart multi jobs out there that get the 6607, the periodic 6607, because I used the wrong wire type, or aren't daisy chained properly, whatever the case may be. We need to make sure that we square away our communication wiring, because you don't want to have this problem where every time you go to the house, there's a 6607 and you're in refrigerant recovery. You got to release the charge over and over again.
All right.
And
Beautiful.
to your point, Brent, making sure that we address.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Because I know a lot of guys that smart multis, a startup, they don't
Yeah.
address.
And we've
Yeah.
talked about
This
this
is critical.
before. When the smart multis first came out, it was some questions you have to address, and you don't. Some people didn't address, and it worked fine. But you have to address.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing I do
So-
want to point out is because of that refrigerant recovery mode that we have with the smart multi, there is a different A min and M max chart. So because we're able to keep some of that refrigerant in the outdoor unit or bring some back to the outdoor unit, we actually do get more charge. So that same 100 square foot room may not anymore be 5 pounds, 4 ounces. It might actually be more, because the total charge for that system may actually be more because of the fact that we aren't going to let the entire charge dump into that
Okay, so
system.
the solenoids are benefiting us. And giving
Yeah,
us
we're
that.
actually getting
Yep.
more
Yeah.
charge
Correct.
for that same space, because we're not going to lose the whole charge with a smart multi.
And if you're listening to this and go, boy, this is a lot to know, don't worry about it, because first of all, we have training available.
Yep.
We've released our A2L M&P Essentials training, and us and distributors will start teaching that fairly soon, if they haven't already.
Yeah.
We've got some e-learning that's going to be coming. Hopefully, our target is by the end of January. It's give or take a week or so, but there'll be some e-learning that will cover all of these things. In case you took training, hey, if you went to an M&P class in October of 2024, you don't have to come to a class again. We'll have it just to discuss these little particular things here. We'll have that available. And talking about training, and hopefully this will be fixed by the time this goes on the air. But I just want to let everybody know we had a major flood in our Boston Training Center while we were shut down for the New Year's break. And it's basically, I don't know how much water, but a lot of water damaged our training center. So we are actually shut down for the time being. Our opening date is still to be determined, but we're not going to have any classes in January, and possibly no classes in February. But we'll make the notification out there. If you're registered for a class, you'll be notified. Nothing we can do about it. It just happened.
Yeah, equipment didn't get damaged. It's basically carpeting, drywall, stuff like that. Aesthetics.
Yeah, Thursday morning when we came in, it was just a lot of water everywhere. There was probably 20 people here cleaning it up. So we'll be back up and running soon. We'll keep you posted.
Now, for those of you that really have never touched Diamond System Builder,
now you want to.
And especially on the residential side, it's not the most popular tool on the residential side. It's going to be your favorite tool now, right? For instead of trying to figure out your A max or A min and M max,
Right.
and using charts in the installation manual, which you definitely should do, to make the process easier, and sizing the job and making sure that you have the right refrigerant amount, line lengths, and everything else. And entering square footage of the room. That's something new in Diamond System Builder.
Right.
That's to be released soon. The final version of Diamond System Builder. Right now, it's in testing. From what you've tested with it, Scott, and from what I've seen you do with it, it's going to be something you want to definitely use as much as possible.
So to continue on, it also gives you, which would be nice in DSB, it will also give you the minimum height for the indoor units.
Oh, okay.
For that. So
It autofills
like
it
what
too.
Bren said earlier, right? Each bottom of every indoor head will give you what your minimum installation height should be for that particular head. DSB also shows that as well. You have to enter the room area. Obviously, the same thing. Your pipe lengths and that hasn't changed and all of that. But if you have not met the room area requirement, it will give you an error right then and there. You don't have to go into global check to see if that error occurs. So that's one thing I do like about DSB. If if that system is too large for that particular space, the moment you hit that room size, it will give you that error right then and there.
Yep.
So it will be nice to see.
And with those minimum requirements, the minimum height requirements, it autofills. So it's been autofilling that height. So just to potential
because that's what the
contractors
unit's calling for.
Yep.
The auto
Needs to
filter
happen.
for it.
So in a nutshell, if before with the 410A equipment, I'm not using Diamond System Builder DSB. What do I need DSB for? I think what I'm hearing is the best and number one reason I want to use it is because I don't have to do math.
Correct.
That works for me.
Yep.
Yeah,
or referring to manuals. I mean, going through a bunch of pages.
And in all seriousness, DSB really is very helpful. Even if you're doing a 1-to-1, throw it in the DSB. You know,
it's already calculating your charge, right? And it has been forever, right? It calculates your charge. That's the easiest, easiest part. Now it's also taking that charge and saying, well, how does that work with your room size? So it's knocking out both of those two major issues with installations. You know, how much charge do I need? Is it going to work in my application? And then is it too much refrigerant for that room size?
And by the way, this shouldn't be an extra step measuring the room because you should do that for load calc anyway. You should be doing load calcs for everything. So, because somebody's thinking, well, no, I got to measure the room. It should be done already.
What do you mean? Doesn't a 5-ton work for every application?
Sure.
No, it doesn't. I'm joking.
Yes.
Yep. So one other thing that is an option with the Smart Multis is we have an optional alarm kit for Smart Multi units, and it actually has an MNet address. It's actually part of the MNet bus, and we can have up to 8 refrigerant leak or refrigerant sensors on that optional alarm kit. So you don't have to install it; it's not required, but it gives you the option to put now 8 sensors throughout the home, as opposed to just the built-in sensors on the units. We can now have 8 sensors. We choose where we want them throughout the home, and it will communicate with our system, shut things down. If
install them on a wall or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Another option as well.
So anything else we want to cover before we
I feel like we didn't really touch or talk about too much the height requirements for the indoor units. Because there is a height requirement for the floor mount. There's a height requirement for cassettes. I mean, there are always been.
No, are you talking minimum or maximum height requirements?
Depends. Right? It depends on the indoor unit.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. If it's a floor mount, it's a maximum. If it's a ceiling suspended, or a 4-way cassette, it's a minimum.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
But we're mostly concerned, or contractors out there, they're concerned with the A-min measurement. That's the measurement, the square footage of that room. As far as the indoor unit, make sure that you're looking at the installation manual for the minimum height, or when you're hanging a wall unit, and your floor unit also has to be a minimum height off the floor. So I just wanted to make sure that we touched on that. And look, Bryn, like you said, DSB auto fills that because it knows the model you're choosing and that height restriction.
Yeah.
But I think that is a good start to 2025 with our A2L information. And I think there's more to come. Obviously, we're going to have more information comes in and things get updated. But that's it.
Well, there's one thing what I would like to add to Brent's point about the MXE Smart Multi, where he's talking about the dip switch to activate the for the communication, right? If there's a communication error, right, where you go in refrigerant recovery. So one thing that we're all used to today in the Smart Multi attached to a branch box is a dip switch 2-5. That's to basically tell the Smart Multi that I'm connected to a branch box today on 410A models. When we go to R454B models, that does not apply anymore. We do not have to turn on a dip switch if we're connected to a branch box.
It's going to know through the logic, basically.
It's going to just knows through the logic. Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Some things easier, some things a little more difficult.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
Yeah. It's always fun to learn.
All right. Well,
so when was the last time you actually had a chunky bar?
I'm going to say, well, hopefully my wife won't listen to this because I'm forbidden from having those because it made me chunky. There was, what, and I'll sneak one in. If I have to go to a CVS for something, And when I leave, I walk down the candy aisle, and they're right there with, like you said, an inch of dust on them.
Right next to the Zag
And I'll
nuts.
grab one.
Yeah.
And I'll grab one, and I unwrap it right in the store before I leave. I throw the wrapper away in the store so it's not in my car.
Smart.
By the time I get to my car, it's gone.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm going to say it's been about 6 months, but I love those things. And Mallow cups, I just love it. Just marshmallow instead of peanut butter inside a chocolate cup. Looks like a Reese's peanut butter cup. And Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel has the general store little area that they sell them. That's about where I see them. Other than that, you don't see them in too many places.
I was in my kid's car the other day, and I had to go pick up a battery at AutoZone, so I had to use this. Obviously, my battery was dead. I had to use this car and go to AutoZone, and I saw a bunch of wrappers on the floor of his car. These things called cowtails.
Oh, those are
great.
delicious.
I don't think I've ever had a cowtail. What is that?
Oh, you have. Have you
those
ever had
are
a
good.
Getz?
No.
Getz's? They're like the little caramels with the cream inside.
Oh, yeah,
Discs.
yeah.
They're
This
really
is just
dry.
a long, skinny version of that.
Yeah, they're really dry. They're so good.
Yeah.
They're so good.
And now they make the cowtails, like the orange and white ones. Those are just like the Getz. They're caramel on the outside with the cream in the middle.
Cowtail.
But now the cowtails make different ones, like fudge brownie and like caramel filled ones. So they're
Get
pretty
out
good.
of here.
Listen,
Sounds like he goes to Cumbies a lot.
of all the things you can find in your son's car, that's not bad. I don't even want to discuss what I just found in my son's car.
You found wrappers in your son's car. I was like, yeah, it's not
No, it
bad.
wasn't a wrapper.
Cowtails are fun.
My wife was pretty upset. She actually is the one that found it. She was looking for something, and he's 19, so I have to have a talk with him. All right, Scott, thank you again for putting all this together. Thank you for all your hard work on it, and Bryn, you as well, because you were had a hand in it as well.
Yes.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
time
Bryn.
putting this, being on our show, and and happy New Year, everyone. Enjoy. Well, the month is just about over anyway, but you can still say Happy New Year through the end of January, right?
It's the second week of January. Well, don't rush us, man.
Wait a minute,
Wait. Where have you heard the term Merry New Year?
never.
What movie?
Oh, Trading Places. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Great movie.
That was a deep cut right there.
Yeah.
And we're closed next Monday. Next Monday is the 20th,
Merry New
Martin
Year.
Luther King holiday. We're closed, just so everybody knows.
All right. See you on the next one.
We get a new president.